All right, welcome everyone. This is the October meeting for the ANC 3C Safe, Sustainable, and Equitable Transportation Committee. No decisions are made at this meeting. This is an extra meeting where the community can bring up issues, and we can work on issues that'll then go to the full ANC meeting. So, welcome, Kathleen. Thank you for joining me and Commissioner Nash. Really appreciate it. Um, I'm gonna put the agenda in the chat as soon as I find the chat. Go. And I'm going to change the settings so everyone can chat with everyone. Um, and basically, there's two items on the agenda today. One item is discussion about road safety on Reno/34th. So at the last meeting, we had a discussion about it, took some notes, and then other people have also added to the Google document. And so now we're going to try and see how we can turn this into more of a letter format and try and resolve some questions and some stuff and see what the best way is to move forward on that. The second item on the agenda uh, is restriction of trucks on Macomb Street east of Connecticut Avenue. And let me actually show this on my screen. It's pasted in the agenda as well, but just in case, this is Macomb east of Connecticut. Um, there's requirements for moving trucks and stuff like that there, but often trucks and buses are using it just to turn around, and there's been like severe traffic jams and other issues that a lot of neighbors have pointed out. So wondering if this could be restricted. I think there's a need for them to go through the alley sometimes, but this is for the back road where a lot of trucks and stuff get stuck. So there's a discussion about if we need to start advocating for removing trucks from there from Macomb. So those are the two items on the agenda. I just wanted to check if Commissioner Nash or Kathleen, if either of you had anything else you would like to bring up for discussion that we should add to the agenda.
Sure, if there's time, there's a third item I'd just like to put on, and that concerns the landscaping of the service
The service lane.
to be sidewalk. And
Yeah.
it just seemed there's been this kind of ad hoc community group that has been working on, I think, enhancing it. And DDOT seems to be taking some, I don't know, fairly inflexible positions that are probably based on their contract term. But anyway, if there's time, we should talk about it. And if there's any way we can bring some influence to, find a more flexible solution.
I
Essentially they're
agree.
saying all the choices and planning has to take place between now and November, which is not the most optimal season for trees and other vegetation.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for bringing that up. I've been on the emails going back and forth, and I know that Commissioner Gordon also wanted to talk about this. Let me actually send a quick message to her in case she's available. If she can join. Um, cool. All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner Nash. I've added that to the agenda. I guess before I go down, Kathleen, I just wanted to ask, is there a particular agenda item that you're interested in? Because I'd rather do that one first. And then Commissioner Nash and I can continue with other agenda items. So is there a particular one that you would like discussed first? And you're on mute, so I'm gonna ask you to unmute. There we go.
Okay, so I live on 34th Street, so I'm really
Okay.
interested in that issue.
Perfect. All right, so that's the first one on our agenda. So, I am going to put the 34th and Reno Road ideas document in the chat, and maybe Commissioner Nash, since you made a lot of useful edits, if you're okay, maybe we can go through your edits and see, like, discuss on changes and stuff like that. Would that be useful?
Yeah, I'm happy
or
to, although I think especially since we just have one other participant on who lives on 34th Street, I would be really interested, Kathleen, if you could
Sure.
maybe share your perspective on what the challenges are. I mean, Swally and I have identified a number ourselves, but having the perspective of someone who is actually resident on the street would be useful, and then we can get to talking about some of the possible solutions and toolkit measures.
Well, it's things that have already come up. It's just cars are driving too fast, and I think there's more traffic now than there has been. I don't know if it's getting worse, but I noticed, I think it was Monday, my husband and I were driving home and we were on Reno coming back to our house. And most of the cars, and it was probably about 2:30, I think most of the cars were Maryland plates, not DC drivers. So it's clear that this is not just a neighborhood street, and people are just driving so crazy. Today, no, it was Monday, because Monday was the holiday, and the speed limit near the school still is showing 15 miles an hour. So I usually try and go that amount. And one frustrated driver just used the center lane as the passing lane and passed the car behind me and me to get ahead, and went speeding down the road. It's just crazy. And I walk more than I drive. So it's the same issues that you heard last time, trying to cross the street, and that stretch right at Quebec down to Rodman with the curve is particularly bad. And like I no longer go out that way. I live right near the corner, and I was almost hit. So I don't even go out that way, even when I'm trying to make a right turn, because no one is going 20 miles an hour on that curve. I don't know how receptive DDOT's going to be to slowing the traffic if this is now becoming a major street.
Mhm.
I think people are going on 34th and Reno instead of Connecticut.
Mhm.
I think that's very true. I mean, you say becoming a major street. I mean, in some respects, it's classified more like one. It's classified as a minor arterial road,
Hmm.
which, given its width and curves is, I don't know, doesn't exactly make sense to me. But my understanding, from people who lived here a long time, is that when the metro line was being built underneath Connecticut Avenue, and Connecticut was um, constrained in many places, DC actually encouraged traffic to use Reno 34th as a bypass. And unfortunately, a lot of it never went back. The other thing I would say is I think it's unclear what the speed limit even is. I mean, during the pandemic, DC reduced the default speed, except on maybe the most major arterials and freeways and so forth, from 25 to 20 miles an hour. And there are places on 34th Street where the new 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs are posted. But then there are other places, including, right by schools, alongside Beauvoir or NCS or so forth, where it's 25 miles an hour. So I think that's probably just, I don't know, inattention on DDOT's part, but it's hard to ticket somebody for an infraction if the posted speed limit isn't correct. And given that drivers often drive above that limit, you're effectively setting permission to go faster than I think what DC intends and what is safer.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think it's I mean, just to the comment of, I think Commissioner Nashville, you and Kathleen, you made this about, will DDOT do this if it means slowing down cars. Well, I mean, I think we should ask them and ask them like what are the solutions here and what can they do, because they should be implementing some type of slowdown, especially if it's so dangerous. And I the last time we sent a letter, we looked up the number of accidents, like just the intersection of Newark and Reno had an inordinate number of accidents, and the same thing with Ordway, same thing with Rodman. Like there, you can just see the number of accidents clustering there, crashes clustering there. So, okay, cool, thank you. So I guess Commissioner Nash, I guess from your sort of, since you've sort of looked at the document and made some comments, like what do you feel is a good way forward? Should we try and go comment by comment? Should we try and think about revising it so it's more of a coherent whole? Is there a theme that you think would be better to organize it?
Well, I guess I'd start from the theme and approach and then go into specifics. So the theme is, Reno 34th Street is corridor is frankly broken. It's dysfunctional from a safety standpoint. It's even not all that great from a transportation standpoint. Mm-hmm. And the last time, DDOT looked at this road was well over 20 years ago, when they did eliminate a reversible center lane at the time, which was a good thing. But since then, traffic has probably only increased. There are more people walking, more kids walking to schools. Traffic seems to be now at all hours. And we know that there are safety issues, and not just speed, but, as we've observed ourselves, there are places where sidewalks are narrow, and there are, road signs actually in the sidewalk, which narrow them further. And more importantly, there is just no buffer between the sidewalk and a travel lane. And that includes on the curve that Kathleen spoke about, where, one clumsy step could, cause someone to fall into a travel lane with traffic. And so, there are a whole host of things that DDOT needs to look at. So I think you start off with saying we need their focus, their engagement, certainly a traffic count, if not a study to, rethink how we improve safety and the experience on this roadway, especially given the number of schools right on it or adjacent to it. And then, I think that beyond this traffic committee, with DDOT's engagement, we do at least one, maybe a series of community meetings with residents like Kathleen, with John Eaton community, with other schools, with other stakeholders, because I think a lot of people are concerned about safety, and people will have different perspectives, because this is going to be a thorny problem. And starting now, but through that process, then we look at tangible ways to improve safety. And now some of it might be fairly immediate, and I think Commissioner Siddiqui, we continue to push the traffic calming measures that you outlined and sponsored in a resolution back a few months ago around John Eaton School. I mean, that's an acute need. But then we push for other alternatives to be considered, and it might involve some more signalization. It certainly should involve other kinds of traffic calming. It should involve, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, a relook at the need for a center turn lane throughout the whole corridor, as opposed to in select locations, and how repurposing that space could lead to safety improvements, whether it's more buffer or a median, or maybe a bike lane in places, or parking on one side, which would serve the dual purpose of also providing a buffer and calming traffic. So there are a whole host of things. And then we do know that DDOT has become a bit more flexible in its toolkit, whether it's narrowed crosswalks, certainly raised crosswalks, or now one sees these rumble strips that actually do seem to encourage cars to slow down, or even look at ways to if not discourage at least keep the volume from traffic from continuing to grow. And one of them might be reconfiguring the intersection at Tilden Street to eliminate that slip lane. So people have to make more of a conscious decision to, to turn right, to continue on down, kind of like the Park Service did in the last year or two south of the Kennedy Center near the Lincoln Memorial. So anyway, there, there are a host of ideas in the letter that that you started. But that to me would be maybe a process.
Sorry, I was muted. No, that makes sense. Commissioner Kirkpiece here, so I'm letting him in. I think that makes sense. I like the way you've laid out the theme in the letter, and the only thing I'll say is like I totally understand asking DDOT to do a study, and I also understand asking DDOT to do the engagement. But I also like that you said they should do something immediately too if they can. And I think I just want to make sure when we write the tone, we don't want it to seem like the DDOT can say, all right, well, we'll wait for the study, then we'll wait for the engagement. Then like if there's a way we can balance the letter between like, hey, if you can do something right now, do it right away. But maybe before you implement the solutions, like, then make sure you do the proper community engagement and you do all that stuff. Because I think part of it is, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do any community engagement before we ask for traffic calming. It seems like I haven't heard anyone say that we don't need traffic calming. So there's definitely something we can ask for, but I totally agree with you. Like I like how you laid it out. And I think if we can strike that balance so it doesn't seem like we're telling them, hey, do a study and then 5 years later come back with a solution. If there's some ways they can do something.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want studies to be the excuse for inaction. That's for sure. And, and besides the traffic calming that you laid out around Eaton, I mean, there are, I think easy wins that they could do without a study. I mean, you mentioned the Newark intersection. I mean, that's one of several where you see, utility poles doubled or even tripled up, which obscures sight lines. And these have been there for a long time. And, so those are things that DDOT, because they control that public space, could remedy, and those are little things, but it would, I think, tangible benefits in certain places.
I like that. I really like if we can list those out, then we have like a list of like, hey, this can happen. Like this is like actually really, really bad, and this can happen right away. Cool. Commissioner Kripke, we're just talking about the 34th Street Reno and like how we can how to phrase the letter, how to write it up and stuff. So I think Commissioner Nash gave like I think a good summary of how we can structure it and then have the specifics after that so that DDOT can see the need for doing this.
Great. Sorry, I'm coming in late. I support the effort, although I see the complexity of different interests on 34th Street and Reno Road. I tend to lean towards the analysis that it's too fast and too dangerous. So especially those like blind intersections and problems with the sight lines and very narrow sidewalks. So anyway, I'm supportive. I had something I wanted to ask about. Just to note. So, I mean, in terms of strategy for getting action, I hear you about asking them to do something sooner than later. But do we have any sense? Like they had this new transportation safety investigation system, and it's pretty new. So we probably don't quite know how it operates. I noticed that they don't have any TSIs in our ANC in this prioritized for this quarter. And anyway, I'm just asking if anybody has any insight on how this process is going and whether there's a way to sort of bump things up or maybe short circuit the process and go above it. I don't know. I mean, are they going to just stick our letter into a TSI basically? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah. I think the goal is to try and keep this out of the TSI because anything that's gone into the TSI so far since that new system came out, there's one thing on Macomb that I saw that has been prioritized, and that's it. We sent like eating stuff in and stuff like that. And just to give you a little bit of history, when Commissioner McWood and I had like submitted TSIs in request for this, and Commissioner McWood had done that even before I was on the ANC. And what they did at this time was they would come and do the TSI, they'd say everything is fine, and they shut it down and leave. And like we've sent a holistic letter before about specific intersections, and they essentially are like, this is fine. So they've been ignoring this for a while. That's why kind of like at least the strategy here is like we're trying to tell them, hey, can you look at this corridor? And here's a number of issues all on this corridor. At least trying to lay them out for them, and then seeing if we can get traction with DDOT. But if this, you're right, if this goes into the TSI box, this is gone. Like it's lost in the. That's why I don't think it's a good idea to do like intersection by intersection TSIs. I mean, we could still submit them, but I think it's good if we can get like a holistic look at this and make the point that this is something that you need to look at like very, very systematically, and it's very important to look at the entire corridor. Commissioner Nash,
Sorry about that. I believe that we also have to enlist the help of Matt Fruman, our council member. I mean, in fact, you'll remember going back, I don't know, almost a year ago, several of us walked 34th and Reno with Matt, and pointed out some of these issues, and he observed them and seemed to be swayed by them. So I think to get DDOT's attention, particularly for a more holistic look, will require his support. I think we can get it. It might also require some additional funding, which hopefully they can be helpful with too. But this isn't one street, or at least it's not one section of a street, and it's certainly not one intersection. It's something that goes right through the heart of the community.
I completely agree with you, and I do agree with you. We'll need to engage him and get his support and get fund, and he'll need to have the funding put in place. We'll do that. Cool. All right. Well, I guess so. I think the goal is to get this letter written and passed at our Monday meeting on October 23rd. I'm just thinking of next steps. Commissioner Nash, since you laid out such a good theme, did you want to take a stab at putting together a structure, or I'd
be happy to take a stab at it.
Okay.
I guess what I'm, since it's a small group and I'm thinking out loud, do you and Gowan think when we go to the ANC, to our colleagues, is it better to have a letter that is shorter and lays out some of the problems and the ask and the process, or if we go in with sort of a very specific list that says a signal here or a narrowed crosswalk there's a chance that we could get really our colleagues could get kind of focused around the details, which would be fine, but it might prolong it then.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think our colleagues are going to be supportive of in general traffic calming and stuff like that. I do agree with you that the details, and I think that's something I think. So I have like a couple of thoughts here, because so many community members have contributed to it. I don't necessarily want to lose some of the details, but maybe some of the recommendations, what we can do is, instead of where we say, hey, we need a raised crosswalk here, we can say, we urge DDOT to study this intersection and figure out what strategies could we take, including looking at this. So it's not like we're like focusing on something, and I can soften that language too. But I do agree with you. Like, I don't think we need to make like specific asks, even and get into the minutiae of things before we get there. But I also don't want to lose out, some of the community members when they've added like specific intersections and stuff. Like, I want to keep that in there just so people feel like their work went into something, and it did. It's good to have those extra details that the community has looked at this by intersection as well.
I see that Gowan has his hand up.
Yeah, and not to make things more complicated than they should be, but since it does transverse other ANCs, curious what you guys think about trying to recruit other ANCs into the question, especially if we're asking for a holistic idea for how Reno Road should operate, at least going up, through Van Ness, I think.
Oh,
In the, so anyway, just a question if you think that would add anything, or whether
yeah.
it's worth trying to explore that with other, at least the one, whatever it is, the one that's just north of us.
So in my experience, the easiest way to get other ANCs on board is to give them a written thing that they can copy. And kind of say like, hey, we passed this. What do you think? I I mean, we could reach out to them right now and say, hey, we're working on this. What do you all feel like? Um, my only not hesitation, but my only like things I think about is in the process is like I'd rather get our ANC agreed on something and then reach out. Just so, which again, there's nothing wrong with it. But yeah, I also a little wary on time and stuff like that, just like getting their input and stuff. But if one of us wanted to do it and wanted to reach out and get their input, I mean, the draft is public, it's on our website. We could ask them what they think and if they have ideas they want to put in. I just want to make sure we don't short circuit our own process if we go to them.
Well, that approach makes sense to me. I think we should start the ball rolling and either bring in ANCs or other ANCs or ANC ourselves, or it's possible that when we engage with Matt Fruman's office, he'll say, well, let's have DDOT, study this corridor as it goes north. I mean, we kind of know where it ends, right? It ends at Massachusetts Avenue, and that's within our ANC. And the ANC runs almost to Tilton Street, not quite. But I think we should start and then build from there.
Well, question, I don't know if that ANC has a transportation committee or some counterpart. That would be at least one easy phone call to make or thing to check, which I would do. Swatley, do you happen to know if they have one? I'll check into it if no one knows.
Actually, I always thought ANC3F was one of the best organized ANCs in terms of committees because they have like committee charters and they have like community members. So they had one until last year. I don't know now with the turnover in commissioners what's happening there, but I know some ANCs there who are still there. And even if actually I do know Bob Daling, I think, is the chair of their transportation committee until at least until last year. So happy to reach out to him, once we're done with our process. Like, I think it'd be relatively easy. Or Commissioner Kripke, if you want to reach out and find out, you should do it. Nothing stopping.
Okay, I'll think about that. I'm not trying to make things more complicated. The one thing is, if there have been neighbors complaining about things just up the road that would be worth including rather than trying to do separate things. So anyway, just for coherence and stuff. But I don't want to make it. I'm not trying to create a problem.
I think once we have a draft, what I'll do is I'll send Bob Daling an email and say, hey, we're passing this at our next meeting, just letting you know. If you have, if you all are thinking of passing something similar, let us know. And and in case there's something major that he sees, I won't invite edits, but in case there's something major that he sees that he's like, wait, don't do this one or do this one, then we can consider adding it if we need to.
That sounds good.
Cool. All right. So I think we have a plan for this. So Commissioner Nash will take a first stab. And Commissioner Nash, don't worry about typing over the document. Google Doc saves all the old versions. So if there's something that's gone, I can always retrieve it. But yeah, feel free to go through, and then once you're done, or if you want to like create a new Google Doc, however works for your workflow, do whatever is easiest for you, and then just pass it back around, and then I'll take a next round at it, and then hopefully we have something ready to go to the commission by Monday so that we can send it out with the agenda.
Yeah, that works. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Cool. So the next item on the agenda is trucks on Macomb. I kind of want to just deal with this quickly. This is really Commissioner Gordon's SMD, and she's not here, but she did say that she's like, oh yeah, we should not have trucks back there. There's no reason for them to be back there. So I propose, unless one of you others, I propose sort of going back to Commissioner Gordon and saying like, well, before I put the cart before the horse. My personal opinion is I think it's fine. I think like as long as it's behind the alley, like we put a no trucks allowed here sign, no trucks over something allowed here sign, over a certain size allowed, and then propose that. And then if Commissioner Gordon is okay with it, I'd be fine with it. But other commissioners, you should go forward and see if you have anything.
That makes sense. I mean, it allows trucks to reach the alley.
Mhm.
Where I know, you know, trash is picked up, obviously, and there are some deliveries made. You know, the other thing to point out is that Macomb Street, west of Connecticut, is a collector street, so it carries a little higher traffic than a local street, but east of Connecticut, it's a local street. And I'm pretty sure that Ordway Street is classified local both sides. So
Great
you
thing.
know,
I should check that.
trucks,
Really good.
especially through trucks, are disfavored by DDOT on those routes. So, you know, it's another good reason to have it posted just at the, you know, just at the alley.
No, that's a great suggestion. That's such a good suggestion. And I didn't think, you know, if they've classified as local, then that makes perfect sense. Then we should just like get that done. I'll check that. Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, landscaping of service lane. Commissioner Nash, since you brought the agenda item up, I think you know, a bunch of us have been on emails and talked to Liza and
Yeah,
you know, talked to other people involved with this, but you brought the agenda item up.
sure.
The
So,
floor is
and
yours.
this is a little bit secondhand because
Yeah.
my wife is actually part of this group,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
she's shared with me some things, and including a message that I think at least several in the group got
Yeah.
about a conversation with the project manager. Is it Mr. Kabede or Kabid?
I think so. I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah.
Who, and I'll sort of quickly paraphrase here, but it's about the landscaping and what can be done to augment it, and you know when selection has to be made in planting. And according to this, he said that DDOT's agreement with the general contractor, which is Capital Paving, is currently scheduled to end in November, and that DDOT is seeking to extend it to the January-February timeframe, which is probably not that helpful to us. Such extensions are costly, and DDOT, quote, can't keep the project going forever. He then said that the community could leave the landscaping to March, April timeframe, but suggested at that point, the neighborhood would just have to do it ourselves. And he then seemed to backtrack from that. He also noted that their favored design included rubber sidewalks, which is interesting. And the community didn't want that, and I can see
Yeah.
why. But he said it was incumbent with the group to work promptly with Volker to come up with a planning that can be implemented this fall. And so again, I am not a landscaping expert, but you know, it's not an optimal time to be, you know, for the success of planning things right now. And so it would be great if this could be extended, you know, to sometime in the spring, which allows for more thought to be done, but also for planning to succeed. And, you know, there are mechanisms. I'm sure the contractor wants to be paid and close out the contract. But there are mechanisms, you know, whether it's a piece of the contract can be a no cost extension, or, you know, the planning piece just gets somehow pushed out. But seems there ought to be a fix here, but so far DDOT is not offering one up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the info I have from via email. I know that and it's been weird, like at some point, I'm gonna say this in a public meeting, and I don't mind, because at some point, like the contractor, like, oh, the ANC needs to be involved from the very beginning. It's like, no, we're actually in support. Like we don't, you know, it's not that we need to like rubber stamp everything. So yeah, I mean, I think what I'd be curious from the group is like, what I don't want to have, at least I don't know if this is a fear or like what, but what I don't want to happen is no landscaping happens,
Yeah.
and then no one has money to do anything going forward, right? but I do agree, like if they can extend it until the spring and like make it optimal planting time. I mean, we've already waited so long for this.
Exactly.
I think it's perfectly fine to wait a little bit longer to make it
Well,
like really
and
good.
this is an issue where I think there is,
Yeah.
I would think, very widespread agreement. I mean, I know that,
Yeah.
there was a lot of discussion about the future of the service lane, but
Yeah.
we decided, I mean, don't we want the best landscape,
Yeah.
tree shaded, pleasant,
Exactly.
space we can find?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, so I guess question for Commissioner Nash, and we also have to check with Commissioner Gordon on this. But I, at least like maybe, I think you and I are on the same page. At least like we should do it right, and if we can get an extension, we should. But we also don't want DDOT to be like, all right, well, we're not doing anything. Like make sure that
No.
they at least. But I guess question then is, uh, what action do we want to do? Do we want to like send a letter to DDOT, maybe this ANC meeting, asking them to urging them to have like an extension process so we can have optimal planting and optimal design. For example, say no to the rubber sidewalks. Like, and then but then make the point that like this doesn't mean that you leave this for 2 or 3 years. Like, we want action like in the spring. But if you
Right.
can't do that in the spring, then please make sure that November at least looks closest to what we want. Like again, I don't know if there's a way to phrase that or something, but that's at least where my
Yeah.
mind is
And
getting something like that done.
emphasize that, the work that, can be wrapped up, especially that would allow that lane to be, open more fully to pedestrian use, that ought to occur. And, my understanding is, much as it would be nice to see even more trees, we're not talking about at this stage, you know, carving out more tree boxes, for better
Yeah,
words.
it's mostly
That it's the configuration is there. And so they should finish that work, but then leave money so that the serious planting can occur when it's optimal.
agreed. Okay. I think we're on the same page there. So I guess, would you be open to getting this letter passed at our Monday meeting?
Sure, sure. And I'll talk to Commissioner Gordon too, because
Yeah, I was gonna
we may
email
have
her
been
and
on an
CC you.
email thread where she weighed in. I didn't see it. I just heard about it, but
Okay.
it's her district, and want to be coordinated with her. So
Yeah, I was gonna send her an email after this saying, "Hey, this is what we discussed. Are you like Commissioner Nash are comfortable putting some type of letter at the next meeting? What do you think?" And then I'll let you chime in with your own words. I don't want to, but I think we're both in more or less agreement about like trying to get this like done right
yeah,
and not trying and like asking DDOT like, "Hey, this is not difficult. I mean, you all were supposed to do this in 2016. It took you until 2023 to do it, and like, well, 2018. No, maybe not 2016, but 2018, and it took you till 2023 to do it, and now you're saying you can't even delay a few months just to get it done like with proper planting. Like that's ridiculous. So
yeah. Well, hopefully there is some way either to get an add-on, or if not an add-on, just to, where most of it is closed out, but there is that piece that gets a no cost extension to spring. I don't know, but there ought to be a way.
cool. Awesome. Anything else that we want to discuss on this topic, or does anyone want to bring up anything else that we haven't discussed? Well, wonderful. I think we accomplished a lot today. We were a small and mighty group, and really appreciate you, Commissioner Nash, taking the lead on the letter. Thank you so much for that. And then yeah, and Kathleen, thank you so much for joining. I appreciated Commissioner Nash like asking you straight up front, like, please tell us your story. And it's when the community joins, the community says stuff. That's the only way we can operate. So really appreciate you joining as well. And Commissioner Kirkby, thank you for joining as well. So yeah, we'll call this meeting concluded, and then I'll see you all in a bit.
Okay, good.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.